Are you a new player trying to level up a Technomancer to max level before Worldslayer launches? Are you stuck at challenge tier 5, 10 or even 14? In which case, this build is for you. This Technomancer build uses only tier 1 and tier 2 mods and not a single legendary item. With it, you'll be able to complete every CT15. Let's get into it, starting with an overview of how this build works. The biggest challenge with the undergeared Technomancer. Wait, the undergeared Technomancer is actually quite good. It is a little squishy, but slap on a couple of survivability mods, stick to long range, and it's quite manageable. Damage output is good, and when you hit those crits, it absolutely destroys. This build is a slimmed down version of the awesomeness the Technomancer is when rocking a full gear set. Yes, certain builds do depend on gear set bonuses or tier 3 mods, but the tried and tested Blighted Rounds Firepower build works like a dream still, with some small tweaks. And the first tweak is in the class tree, which picks up more of the middle tree than the meta firepower build. Doing so still allows me to pick up all of the available BRA impact amplifiers, exposing Toxin, which applies a 15% damage debuff with Blighted Rounds, along with the great damage buffs in the top tree, empowering antenna that is activated by Blighted turret, 2 sides to the power, Sharpshooter which buffs your long range damage to 105%, Assault Master and Assault Adept, and UT14 clips, which makes keeping up Blighted Rounds that little bit easier. And what it does do is buff my survivability by increasing my max health, resistance and armor. Through Blur Stream, it buffs my health regeneration, and it lets me pick up Fracture on top of the 2 Purge in the top tree to buff my damage even more. One thing to note is that I'm not picking up Mark for Execution. The 40% buff it provides is 40% on the 15% damage debuff the vulnerability applies, which is only a 6% increase, making Fracture a much better option. Now, before anyone says anything, the in-game guide that still says vulnerability is a 25% damage debuff is wrong. This was nerfed back in April 2021 down to 15%, but the guide was never updated. As mentioned, I am using Blighted Rounds and Blighted Turret along with Cryo Turret for my skills. The reason this build is able to put out great damage comes from the combination of damage buffs and enemy debuffs. Damage buffs come from the weapon damage buffs I get from the class tree, along with bonus firepower, long range damage and close range damage attributes on everything, and the mods Bloodlust and Critical Analysis. Enemy debuffs come in the form of Radical Therapy, Freezing Boost, and the vulnerability from the class tree. Toxic is applied via Blighted Rounds, while Freeze is applied through improved freezing bullets on my main weapon and both turrets as I'm running Ice Component. Personally, I like the added crowd control you get from both turrets inflicting freeze. With the damage buff that Blighted Rounds gives me, not least because it bypasses enemy armor, it is critical to my DPS to keep it active. So I am modding Toxic Lead and Trick Up the Sleeve for ammo replenishment, as well as Spare Mag to give me a buffer mag. Trust me, these will really help and are a better DPS buff than running a damage mod like Crit Stack instead. The 2 survivability mods that I am using are Damage Absorber and Perseverance Shield. You could also use Mitigation from Death, but I just like the simplicity of Damage Absorber. It's just there all the time. Perseverance Shield is also one of my favourites, as it effectively adds 50% to my max health, and shields are effective against both physical and anomaly damage. There is only one weapon that you really need with this build, a tactical assault rifle modded with improved freezing bullets and bone shrapnel, and with crit damage, long range damage and close range damage attributes. A tactical variant is preferred because it has a higher crit damage multiplier and its burst damage hits like a truck. There is no need to get armor piercing on this weapon, as Blighted Rounds bypasses armor. Also, only use damage dealing mods that take effect on a kill, like Bone Shrapnel or Minefield. With other mods like Death Chains, you run the risk of the mods stealing your kills and your ammo replenishment mods not proccing, which would be a bit of a disaster. The key to using this build is to stay at long range where your damage buff is at the highest, and to play a little cautiously. Use turrets and natural cover to control the battlefield, and you will have no problem finishing expeditions. And once you have some legendary gear, you can use one of the builds here to really tear things up. Until next time, casual out.